How do you create a successful business and a fulfilling life? In 2020, after leaving the corporate world once and for all, I founded my digital agency that replaced a six-figure income within just the first few months. Since then, I've coached thousands of entrepreneurs across the globe to do the same. Now I'm on a mission to teach others how an exceptional life is not only possible, but very achievable through entrepreneurship. Join me in this podcast as I interview industry experts to learn the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of what it takes to become a great business owner, and share some of the lessons I've learned along the way as well. Thank you for joining me, and let's dive in. All right, for today's topic, I wanted to talk a little bit about ways that we as leaders can build the purpose, the enrollment, the sense of belonging in our team members, especially when we are doing that as a leader with a remote team, right? It's a completely different ballgame to build company culture and really to show up as a leader in person when you have an in-person office versus when your team is remote, when it is entirely remote. And this is an interesting perspective that I feel like I've had the opportunity to have after spending, over a decade in the corporate world, playing a role in many different teams, whether it was as a individual contributor, as a team member, as a manager or a supervisor, right? Having a lot of different positions, seeing how that, how the teams operated in person and what that meant to show up as a leader, to, build up the team's camaraderie in person versus now having an agency where I've built a team and have an incredible group of individuals, and that has all been built remotely. Right now, I'm not saying by any means that I am the expert on this. By far, I am not. In fact, I would say that I've learned through trial and error, and I've had a lot of opportunities to learn through trial and error, which I feel grateful for, because that means that, there's a lot of opportunity to grow. I have a list of 10 items that I want to go through today that I feel are some of the most important pieces in cultivating the sense of purpose, enrollment, and belonging with a remote team. So I'm going to go through these. All right, here we go. Step one, or number one. I don't know why I said step one. Take that out. Number one, the first piece here is to articulate a compelling mission and vision. So I had a conversation with an individual a couple of days ago and had a little bit of a realization myself in something that I had said, and we were talking about a couple of different things that were happening within a company, and I made the comment that it is difficult as an individual, it is difficult to be enrolled in something when you don't even know what that thing is. And actually, when I said it, it hit me because I think that so often, especially as entrepreneurs, we have this big vision in our mind. We have this big idea in our mind. And I'm going to pause for a second, a little bit of a tangent, stay with me. When I say as entrepreneurs, this applies whether you are a business owner, whether you are a leader, whether you are part of a team, right? We each have this vision or this idea of what it is that we're creating or that we are a part of. But anyways, coming back to that, I think that we all have these ideas of, whether you are a business owner and you have this idea of what it is that you're creating and what it is you want to build, or if you are a manager or a team lead, right? You have an idea of what you're wanting to accomplish, what you want to achieve. But I think so many times, because it is so ingrained in us, we almost assume that other people that we are over think the same, that they have the same vision, that they have the same idea and, kind of goal point in their minds. And I think that this is a really important, first step and first piece that I've had to learn as well, kind of the hard way, honestly, that it's so important to not assume, not make assumptions, but repeat yourself in what the vision is and what the mission is. And to reiterate on that too, I talk about sales statistics a lot. One of the national sales statistics that we hear all the time is that for a lead, like a new lead that has just barely heard about your offer, for them to convert and start to trust your brand and your offer, they need to have seen your brand, your name, your offer at least 7 to 12 times, right? They need to have multiple touch points before they even start to trust what it is that you are doing. So with that in mind, as leaders, how can we expect or assume that just saying something one time, that everyone has it ingrained in their mind and we're all on the same page, right? I don't remember where I heard it, but I agree with it wholeheartedly. It was someone, and in fact, I want to say it was one of the Hermosis, Alex or Leah, that shared and said that as a leader, your team, it should almost be like something they're expecting to hear, right? When you go on your little spiels, right? In fact, I won't speak for my team, but I hope that one of the things that they just expect that I'm going to say, at least at some point in our team meetings together, is how much I appreciate them or how much they are valued, right? And that really, just comes from my own experiences on different teams and knowing what I would want to experience as a team member, right? So I think, looking at maybe not just the overarching mission of what the company has, but what is your specific mission or idea or your specific vision for the team that you are leading? Share that with them. Make sure that it is known, almost to the point that it is laughable because you talk about it so much that everybody knows what it is. Okay. Number two is to connect individual roles to the larger goal. So this one I feel is important because everybody, I think as human nature, we all want to feel that we are a part of something bigger, right? We all want to feel that our role is an invaluable part of the overarching process, right? And many times, and I can think of a lot of different examples in teams that I've been a part of where there are particular roles that maybe go, I wouldn't say unnoticed, but maybe go kind of under the radar, right? And that may be because they're running so smoothly. It might be because they do not affect the bottom line as much as maybe the sales team does, or, a different part of the company. And so it can become easier for those team members to feel that their role is not as important. And so I think this piece is, something that I really wanted to talk about, because for our team members, especially when we're working remotely, it is so important for the team members to understand what the big picture is and how their role plays an important part in that, right? And the reason that I say especially remotely is because when you're in person, it's much, much easier to walk down the hall and say, hey, so-and-so, come over here really quick. Look at what the marketing team is working on. Man, you did such a great job on building this landing page. Like maybe they're a web dev person, I don't know, right? But you did such a good job building this. Look at what the marketing team is able to do with it now, right? Like it's much easier to have that collaboration, even in the value of each role. It's much easier to have that when you're in person. Whereas remotely, that's not a very, natural thing. It's got to be very intentional if you're going to let people know what those connections are and what the value is there. So that's one piece as a remote leader that I, kind of have on my inventory list in the back of my mind of, okay, when was the last time that I made sure everyone knew what the value of their role was, right? And that they are an important piece of this overall compelling mission and vision. Okay, step number 3, or the third piece of this, is to regularly communicate the why. And this seems like a no-brainer, but again, I think that honestly, I mean, I've fallen in this many, many times, that I think we just assume that people know what the why is. They know what the reason behind everything is. And I think that it's important. I mean, I think about it this way. For myself, as a business owner and also as someone who coaches entrepreneurs on a regular basis, this is something that is preached constantly, right? That you need to align with your why. You need to uncover what your why is and discover what that is so that you can, really be motivated from a deep place, right? And I have different thoughts around that, but that's for another episode. But I think that because that is something that is maybe talked about or preached about on such a regular basis in, the leadership, entrepreneurship world, that we maybe sometimes forget that not only is a personal why very important for ourselves, but also a why for our team, right? And just like for ourselves, I mean, I know for myself, there are times that are much harder than others that I have to very, very intentionally remind myself what my why is and recommit to that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, right? So again, looking at it as from the perspective of being a leader, we need to remember that our team members are human beings, right? And that they may need those reminders as well. And just like with little children, right? I'll share this story. My little boy, the other day, we were talking about something that he was excited about. And he was telling me about it, and he's 3, right? So he's telling me this, and he's like, yeah, like telling me like I don't know what it is, right? And he shared that there was a part of this particular story that he was scared about. And I shared with him that he didn't need to be scared and tried to give him some reassurance. And he told me, well, Mom, you're not scared, but I am scared. And I said, that's okay, buddy, but I want you to feel safe, and you can use some of my safe feeling, right? So that you can feel safe too. And it was kind of a weird way to say it, but it made him feel better. So I was like, all right, cool. Right. But it made me think, though, that sometimes, even for, not saying that our team members are children, but what I am saying is that sometimes our team members need our confidence. They need to use a little bit of our confidence or a little bit of our, like risk tolerance, or they need to rely on a little bit of our motivation or a little bit of our positivity, or sometimes they need to rely on a little bit of our like F it attitude, right? And I think that as a leader, that's kind of part of our unwritten job description, is that we are stepping in as in kind of a servant leadership role, saying, hey, team, I am here to show up in the best way that I can, which is not always perfect, but it will always be the best that I have, so that you can rely on that. You can have that as a stable, almost a stable anchor, right? For you to show up in the best way that you can as well. So I hope that made sense in a roundabout way. All right, so going back to that, so regularly communicating the why, being clear on what the why is, reiterating it. And sometimes if team members need a reminder or a recommitment, or you can tell that they are not, 100% in, a conversation is sometimes needed. And I would say too, that with this piece, I think that it's really important, even more so with having remote teams. I think that it's really important to have regularly scheduled one-on-ones. And those regularly scheduled one-on-ones are not just a check-in of like, hey, how's it going? You feeling okay? Okay, great, cool, right? It's not like that. It's almost going in deeper, understanding if they are still in the same place with what they want out of their career, right? Are they still in the same place with their 6-month, 12-month goals? How can you help them achieve those and empower them towards those? How is their current role in this team helping them move towards that? Is it, or is it not? Are there things that they're more interested in? Are they feeling like they have been productive over the last month, 2 months, 3 months? Where do they feel that they've had strengths? Where do they feel that they've had maybe failures or learning opportunities, right? Just opening it up to share those things, because again, in an in-person team, you have moments where those come up naturally. I mean, in-person teams, right before the pandemic, I was with a sales team that we had like 20 people or so, 20, 30 people that were on the sales floor. And I can't tell you how many times per day we would have little groups that would break off and, go talk by the water cooler about, oh man, dude, I just, invested money in this thing because I'm really interested in blah, blah, blah. And I'm super excited about what I'm accomplishing this month with the job because commissions are going to help go towards that investment. And, just natural conversations where you can open up and talk about those things and understand where the alignment is, also understand where the levels of motivation are, the levels of engagement, the levels of, you name it. That doesn't happen as naturally in a remote team. Again, it's something that must be done intentionally. And so I think that, and it is one of those pieces that as a leader, and I know for myself, I can do a better job of with my team, but I feel that it is a piece that is very important if we want our team members to feel that they actually belong and that they have purpose, right? They need to feel understood. All right. The step 4, and this actually kind of goes into what I was talking with that, but piece number 4 is recognizing and celebrating milestones. So I don't know why this just came into my mind, but I had a manager once who pulled me aside and told me that that any time that someone was celebrated, that it took away from somebody else. So because of that, we were never going to be celebrating anything. And that was the biggest bullshit I've ever heard in my entire life. But the reason that I guess that I may be thinking of that is I don't think that you can ever do too much celebrating of milestones and recognizing achievements and things like that. In fact, I think that they should be celebrated on a regular basis, whether that is starting each meeting with wins, going through and talking about, maybe personal wins, professional wins, and your, physical wins. Which, I mean, if you're listening to this, I talk about the 3 Ps with Entre Institute quite often. Or maybe it's, another one that we do sometimes is what is something that you've learned this week, or what is something that you are excited about this week, right? Celebrating those little things that make us as human beings light up, right? That's something that should be done. Just like with, I know I'm using association to parenting a little bit here, but it's kind of the same idea, right? That when with our little children, when we celebrate their wins and help them feel empowered and confident and capable in different things, what does it do? More often than not, it helps them to do more. It helps them to achieve more. And I'm not saying that we should celebrate wins with the motive of having our team do more. What I am saying is that if you want a team that is engaged, and you want a team that is loyal, and you want a team that feels that they belong, that is a piece of it that must be happening. Okay, number 5. So number 5 is fostering peer-to-peer recognition. And I'm actually going to couple this with another one that I thought about putting on the list, but then it didn't make it. So this kind of goes along with it. But fostering peer-to-peer recognition, in my mind, also goes along with creating a space for that water cooler talk. Okay. Now, again, this is something that happens naturally in an in-person workspace, but must be intentionally done in a remote workspace. So ways to do this, and what I'm talking about here is that it's important not only for you as the leader to understand and get to know on a regular basis your team members and what their aspirations are and the alignment of their goals, right? But it's also important for your team members to get to know each other on some level, to have that camaraderie, right? I'm sure that all of us listening to this have attended or been a part of some type of team building activity where the activity shows us that, wow, when we all trust each other, we do a better job, right? So I won't give fun stories about that. But what I will say is that a team that trusts each other is a team that will make it through any type of strenuous, stressful phase of the business. And I'm saying that from experience, from what I've seen, and also, experience in, beforehand in the in-person workspace world where that applies. I will share this one small story that goes along with this, but recently, so a couple weeks ago, my agency team, we had a team member who had a very difficult life situation that came up that was completely out of her control and was very devastating. And our team is made up of remote team members who the majority are here locally in the state of Utah, but many of our team members are across the world, in Argentina, in the Philippines, and quite spread out. And I was absolutely blown away to the point of getting emotional with just how incredible and how strong the team was in coming together to support this team member during this time of really this time of need. Within a day, they had the team had all come together and had signed a virtual card, a sympathy card for a team member. And another one of our team members who lived 4 hours away in the Philippines took it upon himself to put together a get well gift basket and drive it to her home, showing the love from our entire team all together. And it blew me away that a team that is literally meeting together over Slack and over Zoom calls a few times a week can have so much love for each other, so much respect, and so much determination to make sure that the other members of the team are taken care of in their times of need. And that goes on on the celebration side as well. Looking at moments when team members have things to celebrate, it's such an incredible feeling to see that. All right, step number 6, or the sixth piece that I have here, is to provide opportunities for growth. Now, this is one that is very personal to me. If you are familiar with so let's see, I can't remember exactly what he calls it, but Tony Robbins has a structure, and I believe he calls it the 6 motivating, I don't know, something like that. I have to look it up now. Let me see. But it's basically the 6 different pieces or 6 different reasons that people do the things that they do. What does he call it? 6 human needs. That's what it is. Tony Robbins, 6 human needs. If you're familiar with that, awesome. If you're not, look it up. In fact, grab Google, pull it up right now, and type in the Tony Robbins 6 human needs quiz. Take that. It takes like 5 minutes. Take that quiz. What's so cool about this is this quiz goes in a little bit to what we are motivated by as individuals. And there are 6 different pieces that he has broken this down into. And I've got it pulled up here. So the first one is certainty, having assurance that you can avoid pain and gain pleasure. The second one is uncertainty, or having variety, which is the need for the unknown, for the change and for new stimuli. The third human need is being motivated by feeling significant. So feeling unique, important, feeling special, or feeling needed. The fourth human need is having connection, or having love, or a strong feeling of closeness. The fifth is growth. So the need to have expansion of capacity, or the capacity of understanding. And sixth is the need to contribute. So having a sense of service and focus on helping. So what this is saying is that as human beings, each of us individually is motivated more so than the others. We're motivated by one of those 6 human needs. And for me, and throughout my life, it's always toggled between the need for growth and the need for variety, which I know, not surprising at all if you know me. But I think that that's a really important piece for me, is that we feel accomplished, and not just, I mean, I think myself more so because I love, learning, and I love being able to expand my capacity. And that's something that obviously motivates me. But I think as human beings in general, we feel more confidence. We can build more confidence for ourselves when we have opportunities to prove that we have reason to be confident. And we only have opportunities to prove that we have reason to be confident when we have opportunity for growth. Okay, that was a lot, but I hope that connected, right? We all want to be confident. We all want to grow. We all want that, that self-love that can derive from knowing that we are capable, knowing that we can make these things happen, right? But that only can come about when we're giving opportunities to show up in that way, right? So as a leader, I believe that it is part of our responsibility to provide our team members with opportunities to grow. And some of these are more tangible than others. So I'll give examples on both sides. On the more tangible side, or more direct side, opportunities for growth would be paying for additional training, paying for coaching, for conferences or seminars, or for that individual to expand their learning and to expand their education, to become better, not just professionally, but as an individual, right? So that's the more direct side. On the more indirect side, opportunities for growth can be a bit more subtle, right? It can be saying, hey, I'd like you to lead this meeting today, right? And that's not necessarily saying like, hey, I'm going to give you an opportunity to grow and show up, and you're going to lead this meeting today, right? It's instead saying like, hey, I'm passing on some responsibility. But in a way, it's opportunity for growth. So there's 2 different sides to that. And I feel that it's very important that we are hitting the mark on both of those. And maybe it's even just something that, as a leader, we just have it on our tally on the one-to-ones that we have with our team members of saying, okay, has this person had a direct opportunity for growth and an indirect opportunity for growth in the past month, past 2 months, whatever it might be, right? And if not, how can I make that happen? Number 7 is kind of goes along with the number 4. But number 7 is to showcase impact and success stories. So this piece, I feel, is, again, something that can really just elevate the culture of our team. There are so many different studies that show that if you start meetings off with a positive moment or a success story or, things like that, that it rewires or it completely, can elevate the mood or the intention of that meeting. So multiple reasons for that. But it also helps to, in a way, direct the perspective of your team. Okay, so I'll share an example. About 7 or 8 years ago, I worked at a company where we had a lot of opportunities for very unhappy clients. Okay, so that's a nice way to put it. But on part of the team, there was a team that was specifically responsible for handling the phone calls and the conversations of the unhappy clients that we had. And so you can imagine that the meetings with that team, the overarching vibe of those meetings was maybe not always the most positive, right? But there was one thing that would help to redirect the perspective or redirect the intention of those meetings. And that was starting off with almost forcing every single person in the meeting or in that room to share a success story or something that impacted, a client in a positive way from that week. So it's definitely something that can be very powerful. I also too, and I had notes here, that it also instills a sense of purpose and a sense of pride among team members when we are sharing things that, are cool stories or inspiring stories or big wins that our clients are having, right? It helps to have that feeling as a team of, wow, this is the bigger thing that I'm a part of, right? This is the impact that I'm a part of. This is the big vision that I am helping the company to work towards. All right, number 8. Number 8 is to create a virtual water cooler. Oh, I said that I didn't add this one, but I guess I did. So virtual water cooler, we'll talk about this a little bit. In my mind, this is something that's a little bit more relaxed. And I would say that it is more pertinent or a higher bit of a priority for teams that are fully remote. And I guess I'll share this too. This piece might be more geared towards a company rather than, a smaller team. So if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, but my team has it's me and 2 other people, how can we have a water cooler? Maybe this doesn't make sense, right? Maybe instead it's like a group chat on Facebook where you guys send memes, right? Maybe it's that. But I know at least for our team, having an area, a designated space where team members can share, recently, even today, it's a place where some of the team members are sharing inspiring quotes, or sometimes it's funny reels, or sometimes it is, a screenshot or funny pictures or things that they are doing that day that they're like, oh guys, check this out or look at this view, right? Just really building friendships throughout the team, right? And I believe that at a company level, that's what can help build the camaraderie, across departments. All right, number 9 is to seek input and collaboration. So I mentioned this at the beginning. I will say it a million times. I by no means am an expert. I simply have had lots of opportunities to learn, Some call them mistakes and failures. I like to look at them as learning opportunities, but lots of opportunities to grow and to, try again even. And I think that one of the big pieces for this, especially as a leader, is asking for input. And this doesn't always mean asking for input on projects or on processes or on strictly, how the business is running, but many times asking for input on how can I support you better? How can I set clear expectations? How can I be a better communicator? How would you prefer that I talk to you about these things? How would you prefer that I, deliver updates, right? I mean, I'm just trying to think of, simple examples, but asking for feedback on those pieces. And then the important part of this is when that feedback is given, making sure that you are receiving it in a way that makes that person know that it is invited, right? That you want them to be giving you feedback. You want them to be giving you, ways that even you can improve. And in doing that, so, and the reason that I'm saying that is, think about in your life, I'm sure that all of us can think of an example of a situation, whether it's with a parent, a friend, a sibling, a relationship, but think of a situation where any time that you would bring up a problem or something with that person, they flip out and they completely break down and maybe take it as like oh, I'm the most horrible person, I'm so sorry, and kind of take that victim mentality. For you as the person delivering that feedback, what does it make you feel? For me, it makes me feel like, ugh, I do not want to give you feedback like that again because you did not take it very well, right? So instead, I think it is important that especially as leaders, that not only are we asking for input or feedback, but that we receive it in a way that is very open, right? One of my favorite analogies for this is the way that pilots take feedback, right? So when you're flying in an airplane, a pilot flying an airplane, when they are flying, I read a statistic. I mean, I've never flown a plane, so I don't know, but I read a statistic that says that 80% of the time in flight, that flight is off course. 80% of the time. As a passenger, that is terrifying, right? But luckily, pilots have been trained to take feedback really well. So what they do is, ground control or their tools will tell them, hey, you are 3% off course. And how do they respond? They respond 3% back, I don't know how they say it, 3% back to the left, right? 3% back over, corrected. That's their response. Okay, great, corrected, thank you, right? I think it's important to also look at it from this perspective that, which is sometimes hard to do, easier said than done for sure. But as individuals, again, whether it is in a professional setting with family members, siblings, friends, I think that anytime that we receive feedback or criticism, 9 times out of 10, it is done so with good intention because that person cares about us enough to know that we are a good person, right? To know that we have good intentions as well, to know that we care about them and we want to do good. So really, when someone is giving us feedback or giving sometimes criticism even, try to remind yourself that it is sometimes when it's hard to take even, it is most likely coming from a place of love because they want you to be better, right? They know that that is within you, right? So let's see, bring myself back to the topic. Making sure that not only, you're opening up on a regular basis a space for feedback and for input, but also that when that is delivered, you are taking it happily, right? And implementing it. Some of my, and again, too, like all of these things, all of the things that I'm listing, it's really things that I can do better at too, right? So these are things that I'm like thinking about lately and adding to my list. But some of the things that I thought about with this, with the input and asking for feedback, is I don't think that it is enough to just simply say, hey, is there any way that I could be doing better? Right? I don't think that it is enough as a leader to just open it up and say, what could I be doing differently? How can I support you? Right? I mean, yeah, that's great. And that's better than not saying anything at all. But if you want helpful feedback, be specific in what you're asking. Right? So as an example, I know that one of the areas, especially when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed and just completely past my limits, one of the first areas that I struggle with is in communication. And so that's something that many times I've asked or, had conversations around with either specific team members or my wife or, different people in my life, of saying, sometimes I struggle with this, and it's a pretty big struggle. In those situations, is there a way that I could communicate with you that would feel better than, not saying anything at all, or then, saying it this way, or then doing XYZ, right? So that's maybe my personal takeaway with that one is be specific with it. And the last one that I had here, number 10, is personalize the recognition and the rewards. And the reason that I have this one, and it honestly, it does too kind of go along with the recognizing and celebrating different milestones. But I think that it's important to personalize those celebrations when someone is recognized, right, or when you are rewarding them. So similarly to how we all learn in different methods, whether we are auditory, visual learners, or, you name it, we also receive love in different ways. And recognition and rewards are a form of showing love, of showing appreciation, right? So as leaders and business owners, I'm sure that many of us have had opportunities where there are team members who are just not motivated by the typical things, right? I mean, you've got gift cards and the go-tos, right? Gift cards, pizza parties, bonuses, things like that, right? I know specifically there's an example that I'm thinking of an individual that I had the opportunity to work with, who was on my team, and he was just not motivated by money. And it was a struggle because this was in a sales team capacity where majority of individuals that are sales, in the sales space, are motivated by money, right? And so you can say, hey, you'll get an additional bonus, you'll get additional commission, you'll get additional, whatever, if these different things are hit, or when this milestone is hit, or this personal goal. And he was just not motivated by that stuff. Instead, what was really interesting is his human need was significance, right? Significance. So feeling needed, feeling that he was significant in kind of those words of affirmation, feeling unique, right? And so what was kind of cool about this, and there was another manager that I was working with at the time, what we came up with was creating a new part of our weekly meetings where this individual had the new title where they were responsible for doing a little bit of training, because they were a really great salesperson. And so they, had the opportunity to train that, and it helps that person feel really significant. And it was done so in a way that recognized their accomplishments. And so that was a better reward, in a sense, right, to that person than for another team member that would have been happy with, $1,000 bonus. Right. So I think that, again, as leaders, that it is our responsibility to have the conversations and do the diligence, right? Do the due diligence to understand what our team members' uniqueness is in that aspect. All right. So those were the pieces that I had listed out. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I know that these are things that have become kind of make or breaks, a lot of them, for my personal team. And I'm really excited to see what maybe additional pieces come from this over the years as I continue learning and evolving as a business owner in the remote world. So if I am going to ask on this episode, if you have any feedback, or if you have any additional tips or ideas of how to improve the purpose, belonging, the enrollment of specifically remote teams, please send them to me. I would love to hear what they are. If you're on Spotify, there should be a spot below this episode that you can click and send that message. If you're on Apple Podcasts or any other platform on YouTube, head over to our YouTube channel and leave a comment for us there. I would love that. And I'd love to hear what they are. All right, guys, thanks. We'll see you on the next episode. Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Marketing Mastermind. If you took away any little golden nuggets or took down a mental note of any pieces that you loved from this episode, it would mean so much to me if you wouldn't mind sharing this with a friend, sharing it on your social media, or if you feel so inclined, rate and review this podcast. That is the best way to show your love and support and to get the podcast out there to more listeners. So I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you on the next episode.